Hello everyone, welcome to Vaartaalaap. Vaartaalaap means conversation, and I'm your host Sudita Dasgupta. Our guest today is a living example of what an individual can achieve if there is a will to succeed. She is an author, a renowned public speaker, an educator, a coach, mentor, and a well known name among prestigious organizations when it comes to change management and practice. She has added various feathers to her cap and have been honored with several prestigious awards, naming a few: Top 25 Thought Leaders by HDI in Jan 2020, winner of the Change Management Institute CMI Victoria Rebel Award, Global Excellence Award from Business Relationship Management Institute, and many more. Without any further delay, let me welcome the charming change consultant, Karen Ferris. Welcome to Vaartaalaap, Karen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Very excited and honored to be asked.
Nice to have you on our show as well. So we will start with our first round, which is Q&A. So here comes the first one. You have played multiple roles in your life. What is the force that keeps you going?
Good question to start with. My passion for people. So my background was primarily IT service management. For most of my career, that's what moved me from the UK to Australia in 1998. But I'd always been like a team leader or a manager. I've acted as a trainer, consultant, and I was always passionate about the people side of change. I just didn't call it change management or organizational change management. And then about 10 years, I pivoted. I still do service management, but pivoted into the organizational change management space because that's where my passion lies. And I think so often organizations get so wrapped up with change and the speed of change, we forget to bring the people on the journey as
Yeah.
well.
Thanks, Karen. Moving on to the next one. Change is the only thing that is constant. How does change evolve over the years, and what organizations are doing to manage the change?
So change is, you're right, change is evolving. It's getting faster and faster. We've just seen how an unforeseen event with the COVID-19 has
Yep.
driven massive change across many organizations. And that speed of change is not going to slow down. We've got globalization, we've got, technology with, robotics, AI, big data. There is just so much that's driving change and increased competition. And because that speed of change is getting faster, a lot of organizations fear that speed. It's like getting in a fast sports car and just taking off. And it's like, whoa,
Yes.
I want to pull the brakes. And unfortunately, those brakes will stop the innovation, stop the creativity, stop the experimentation. And those organizations really can't afford to slow down because the competition will just come past in the
Yep.
fast lane. And when I talk to large organizations, they're sort of, oh, well, no one's going to take over, our enterprise. And I said, no, but they can chip away at it. There are things that you are doing that if you don't do them faster, better, quicker, cheaper, someone else will do it for you. So it's an absolute imperative that organizations need to constantly change. And the organizations that are succeeding are the ones that are talking and having a conversation with their employees, with their workforce, that constant change is our norm
Yep.
and why we have to do it. The why is the biggest conversation we should have. We often talk about how and what, but why is really important. So what would happen if we don't keep up the speed of change and we don't get faster? So that everyone embraces it. That's just the norm. That's just the way it is.
Yep.
And we need to build a workforce that's resilient in the face of constant change, whilst accepting that it is stressful, it will cause anxiety, and we need to avoid fatigue and burnout. So we need to provide everyone in the organization with the resources, the support, the education to build that resilience
Yep.
because it can be learned. And the organizations also succeeding are those that are adopting agile ways of working in the truest sense.
Yes.
I hate using the word agile because it's just been so so perverted, if you like. To me, Agile has a little a. It's a way of working and a way of thinking. It's not a framework or a methodology. And
Mhm.
organizations that have got that right and shifted that mindset to constant iterative change with feedback, delivering minimal viable product customer value as soon as we can, are the ones that are going to stay ahead of the game. Yeah, and I think for some of the large organizations, um, big banks and some government organizations
Mhm.
are really going to struggle unless they rethink their ways of working, because they're so structured
Yeah.
hierarchy, bureaucracy, that they're just lumbering. They're like they're in the bicycle in the side lane and the Ferrari's going past in the fast lane. So yeah, bring the people on the journey, embrace constant change as the norm, and look at better ways of working.
Surely, to a great extent, I have got very similar experience while working with big four banks and consultancies. So, yeah, agile ways of working is sometimes very challenging to understand in different organizations. Yeah.
Right. And I think one of the challenges, it's a good call, because I've seen some banks and other organizations just have an edict that we are going to be agile tomorrow. And
Yes.
people are like, what does that mean? What does that mean to my job? What's my role?
Hmm.
And they haven't had those conversations about, well, what does it mean? Why do we need to do it? What's it mean? What's it going to look like? So everybody, and it's a cliche, but everybody comes on the journey, because the last thing you want is when we're in an environment that's fast and changing and disruptive,
Hmm.
to do anything that's going to make people uncertain and anxious and stressful. And they also make these sweeping announcements, but you find that there's still the old ways of working taking place
Of
alongside
course.
them trying to be agile, and the two just um, because it is a change in mindset, and you can't
Yeah.
do that by an announcement.
Yeah, there has to be a very smooth transition when we talk about the different ways of agile, like how agile works and different ways of adopting the
Mhm.
agile in the work environment. Yes.
Mm.
So, with my experience as an agile coach, I have observed whether it's human or system, generally they are resistant to changes. How do you motivate others to accept the change?
Okay. So I often say, and I stand by it, that generally
Mm-hmm.
people don't resist change when it's done with them. People resist change when it's done to them. And as I alluded to before, many organizations and the execs and management, whatever, often are a step ahead of themselves because they've been thinking about where the organization needs to go. And they go, right, this is what we need to do. And this is how we're
Mm-hmm.
going to do it. And I'm like, well, hold on a minute. It's like you saying to me, we're going to drive to, we're going to Canberra tomorrow and I'm driving. So you've told me what we're going to do and how we're going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
My first question should be, why? Why am I getting in the car and going to Canberra? So we forget to have that conversations about why we need to adopt agile ways of working, why we need to do things differently. And at the end of the day, the conversation, most of those conversations will be, the organization needs to remain competitive. It
Yeah.
needs to be ahead of the game. We need to innovate, or someone else will do it. And I don't care whether this is a commercial organization, the financial sector, or government. Um, Even a lot of government agencies think, well, no one can take our job because of the government. Yes, they can, and
Yeah.
they will, because if they can do it faster, better, cheaper, they will do it. Um, Trying to think where my track is going now. So yeah, having the conversation about why we need and what it'll mean if we don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it probably means that I won't have a job.
Yeah.
Now, if I like working for that organisation, then now I have a vested interest. Now you're answering the what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm.
It could be, I have a job, we have a successful organisation, we need to build a shared sense of purpose, all those sort of things. But it's about having the why conversation, which we so often just um, don't have. But then also making sure we have a way for people to have that ongoing conversation. People say, well, when people, some people go, oh, well, we sent out an email and told them what the change was going to be, and wonder why it didn't get any traction. And so, well,
Yeah.
email isn't communication, and email is broadcasting.
Yeah.
And that's not engaging. So people need a channel to ask questions, to query, to say I'm concerned or I'm struggling, and we need to make sure that that's always provided. And I think, and I've seen it happen, people will say, come on, yeah, where do I sign?
Yeah.
Let's get on with it.
True. Thanks, Karen, for the insight on how to adopt and sustain change. So, lately, a section of professionals stress on having multiple certifications, not everyone though. What is your perception when comparing experience against certification? So, this is a common question from my viewers. Who will be preferred? Say, for example, a professional with 15 years of practical experience or a professional with 3 years of experience and multiple certifications? So, what's
Mm.
your take on that?
Experience wins hands down every
Yeah.
time, but there's always a but. Unfortunately, it depends who's doing the hiring.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got an agency doing hiring, they're looking for qualifications because they can tick a box. Yes, this person's certified in A, B, and C, then
Mm-hmm.
they must know something. The organisation then has to verify that they actually have the experience. I mean, that's not to say someone young, passionate, who's just done a certification could not be an asset to the organisation. They absolutely could. So it's about clearly defining what your requirements are. Do you want,
Mm-hmm.
someone with that's, young, passionate, with only a year or 2 years experience, alongside someone who's got a tenure of 10 years in another organisation doing what you're looking for. Diversity is key, but it's clearly defining what you're looking for. And often people don't. They just
Yep.
see, we need a person who's done Agile. Well, done it where, done it how, what length of experience, what is it you're going to look for them to do in the organisation
Mm-hmm.
if you bring them in. For me, as I say, I'd always look for experience. In the change management space, for example, there's a certification called ProSci,
Mm-hmm.
um, PROSCI. It's probably the most widest certification for
Yep.
change management professionals. There is others, and you'll see most job adverts will ask for ProSci certification.
Mm-hmm.
Um, thought of generally, or thought of well, preferred is the word looking for, certification preferred. So a lot of people in the industry I'm in change management will go out and get that certification purely to tick that box.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, which it's a lot of money and time, but they know that will get them across the line to get an interview with an organisation.
Yeah, I think with precise S, which is for sustaining the change, is the most difficult part, as I have observed so far. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a model that comes out of the ProSci stable called ADKAR,
Mm-hmm.
which is 5 building blocks. So awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement.
Yeah.
And they're all important building blocks. For me, one of the most important ones is the reinforcement, to
Yep.
actually maintain and sustain the change. Because as human beings, we naturally, when we're faced with something different, can look for ways to revert back to old ways of working.
Of
That's our
course.
comfort zone. We've just been now pushed out of our comfort zone. It could be new technology, new tool, new
Mm-hmm.
process, whatever it might be. So we need to make sure that we keep reinforcing why we're doing this change, what it will mean, make sure that people have all the support and resources they need
Mm-hmm.
to get to a point. And I always say, I define successful change is when people have stopped talking about it, because it's
Yes.
just the way we do things.
Mm-hmm.
And often I use, and I hope with all respect to project managers, I'll put that up there, projects generally, implement or, get to the end, we're on time, we're on budget, and we're in schedule, we're done. And they're
Mm-hmm.
on to the next project. But that to me is installation, not implementation. True implementation is when it's actually becomes embedded into the organizational way of
Mm-hmm.
doing business. It's part of the DNA, and no one even thinks twice about it anymore. So
Yes.
organizational change needs and projects need to work very closely together to make sure that reinforcement happens.
Definitely. Yep. Totally agree on that. So, as we are discussing about current trends, I have seen an inclination towards empowerment, especially women empowerment. So, from where I see, I myself being a mother of a newborn and a technology consultant, I myself find it challenging to best manage the time and have been fortunate as I have received support from my organization as well as family. So, being a mentor, how do you empower individuals who are stuck between their professional as well as personal goals?
Firstly, defining what those goals are,
Hmm.
so that the person is clear about what it is they're trying to achieve. So there's a difference between whether it's a mentoring and a coaching. So mentoring is me pulling on my experience about how I've done things in the past, maybe had similar experiences, whatever. When I'm coaching people, the first thing I say, well, what is the goal that we're trying to achieve?
Hmm.
Um, and then look at what the current situation is. So, if it's a mother of a small child working from home, trying to juggle work and outside work, etc., then we look at what the constraints are. What is the current situation and its realities?
Hmm.
Um, so we make sure that we get a true picture, because often when you're struggling and juggling, it's the picture can get blurred, and
Yes.
it's all just bad. Oh my God, the sky's falling in, and maybe it's not. So
Hmm.
looking at the current situation, the reality, and then what opportunities are there to work towards the goals that we've defined, and they're usually bite-sized pieces. Yeah,
Yes.
the goal could be quite big, but let's break it down into what can be achieved.
Hmm.
And my role is to empower that person, that we have at the end of a coaching session an action or actions that they can go away and put in place,
Hmm.
um, to make small steps towards that goal. So I say to people, whether it's virtual or not, when I'm coaching, what is it you want to have changed when you walk out that door today,
Hmm.
or we end the Zoom call, or wherever it is, so that we know what the change they want to see. Because coaching is all about not me having the answers, it's helping the other person come up with the answers.
Yes.
Um, so empowering them to take responsibility and accountability for achieving those goals, but we both have to agree that we believe that goals are achievable,
Yes.
because empowerment is not giving someone this much to do, because it'll never happen. They need to leave a coaching session to say, yeah, I believe I can achieve that. Doesn't mean it's going to be a bit tough, but
Hmm.
there's the stretch goals and the stretch goals. Things,
Yes.
if I don't think I'm ever going to achieve it, then I'm going to walk out and never do anything about it.
Hmm.
So it's about giving people things that are achievable. It might make them step outside the comfort zone, but that's good. But you work out how far you want to push them outside that comfort zone.
Definitely. That makes us more human as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And every time we go outside our comfort zone, and I love this, thought, our comfort zone gets bigger. Every time we step out,
Yes,
we're
of
pushing it
course.
and it gets bigger. Um, and there is a point where you can get outside your comfort zone and you can get into the terror zone, which you don't want
Hmm.
to go. That's when the burnout and all that stuff happens. But you can step into your outside your comfort zone into the stretch zone
Yeah.
and keep pushing yourself to grow, but do it in bite-sized pieces. And sometimes you might want to step back into your comfort zone and go, whoa, I just wasn't ready for that. And that's okay too.
Hmm.
We all do it. Okay, I didn't quite like that temperature, I'll try it again next week or tomorrow
Hmm.
or whatever. But it's having the courage to still try.
Definitely. In extension to my previous question, as an individual, do you have your share of bad days? And how do you bounce back?
Yes, is the answer to that. Um, or get frustrated. But I always say, if we can be truly resilient, and I try and practice this as much as I can, is that when we have a setback, when I have a setback, I try and not just bounce back, but bounce forward and take the
Hmm.
time. Okay, and sometimes it's difficult, but it's taking the time at some point to say, okay, let me reflect on what's just happened. Um, why didn't it go the way expected? Could I
Hmm.
do something different? But what did work well? What didn't work well? And what can I learn from that experience? What won't I try again? Or what can I try in a different way? So looking at it's about having a growth mindset and say, how can I learn from that situation and bounce forward. Because if we just keep bouncing back, it's just like a bouncing ball, and eventually
Yep.
I'm not going to bounce back. I'm just going to stay down because it hurts too much. If I bounce forward, I'm learning and developing as I go. But also, I mean, especially at the moment with COVID, you know, I'll be honest, I've had days I didn't want to get out of bed. I'm just
Mhm.
like, no, it's too hard today, for whatever reasons. And we're all going through different experiences. I mean, they have been the minority, but it has happened. And they're the days that depending what's on my calendar, but they're
Yep.
the days I generally say, okay, can I take some me time? And I am going to get up, I'm going to get breakfast, I'm going to put on Netflix, and I'm
Mhm.
going to have a me day and just chill out for whether morning, an afternoon, a day, or whatever. What a lot of people call a mental health day,
Yeah.
and just take time out. It's very easy to get on the that's the word, you know, on the wheel, and just keep going and going and going, and that will just lead to burnout. And it's hard when people are balancing other things like children and everything else. You know, I agree, but find a way to get some time for you to just
Definitely.
readjust. Yeah.
It's always important to rejuvenate and come back with a fresh vigor. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because if you do it, I think if you don't, you'll just keep going down and down and down until the worst things happen, and it's just burnout. So
Mhm.
yeah, I deal with it by trying to take a bit of time out, um, try to, you know, look for the positives in what's happened. Um, we often, you know, when we look at things, the situations, we see them through what we call a frame.
Mhm.
So you know, a square frame, and that's it. And it's not it's easy, but if you practice to try and reframe and
Yeah.
look at something from a different angle, sometimes you go, it could be not as quite as bad as I thought it was, or actually there's a glimmer of something there that I didn't see, you know. So
Mhm.
try and reframe situations and look at things a different way.
Definitely. So, moving on to our final section, which is Cat Out of the Hat, where the answers will be in the form of a single word. So, here comes the first one. Change is always top driven, as they say. Do you agree or disagree?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yes, change is always top driven. So, is that something that you agree?
No.
Okay. So, what are the three best techniques to bring the change?
Engagements. Can I use more than one word?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Sorry, I thought it was a one word answer. Collaboration
Mm-hmm.
and conversation, communication.
Yes. And the last one, what is the best tool to withstand change management?
To withstand change management. Um, I think the best tool if I may have misunderstood the question, the best tool that any leader of change or driver of change, and when I say leader, I mean anybody in the
Mm-hmm.
organization, is to be an empathetic leader.
Awesome. And that concludes our session today. Thank you so much for your time. And on behalf of Vaartaalaap, I wish you loads of success in the coming days.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Karen. Have a good day.
You too.
Stay tuned for next Vaartaalaap. I'm your host, Sudita Dasgupta. Goodbye.